Okay, now for a second example on midpoint formula, to make sure you have it, we'll label this example 2. We will be using the same midpoint formula. Let's say that we have a point at -2, -1. We'll call this D. And then the other point, D, and D is over 4. Up, let's say 6. Now let's see how this turns out. Let's find a midpoint for this line segment that would go from -2, -1, up to 4, 6 on a graph. Where would the middle be? Well, let's label our points x1, y1, since this is the first point I wrote down, and x2, y2, since that's the second point I wrote down. Let's substitute them into the midpoint formula. And we have x1 is at -2, and the other x, which is 4. And so we divide by 2. And we'll substitute in the y values. We have the first y value here, which is -1. And the second y value here, which is 6. And divide by 2. Now, if we can solve these two separate little math problems here, we will find the midpoint. Let's work with the x values over here on the left side. -2 plus 4 is 2 over 2. And 2 over 2 we already know is 1. Let's take a look at the right side, the y values. Over here we have -1 plus 6. If we take -1 plus 6, we get a 5. So 5 divided by 2 to find the middle. 5 divided by 2, well, that is 2.5. 2.5 is also called 2.5. So this is our midpoint. We use the midpoint formula. We put in the x values here, and on the right side we put in all the y values. And we bring that down and solved each one of these separately, and now we know the x and y values for our nice little midpoint. Let's double check ourselves on a graph and see if this actually works well for us. Let's grab the graph and we'll test this out. We'll put a point, the first point C is at -2, -1. So at -2, -1, I put C. According to D is at 4, 6. So I move from the origin over 4, up 6. And put my little point there, call it D. And we're supposed to have a segment, so we're going to go ahead and grab a segment and pull it from C to D. And now let's take a look at our midpoint. According to our problem, we have it at 1, 2.5, or 2.5. So let's go over 1 and go up 2.5. Now look where we land. Does that look like a midpoint? Sure does. So we'll call that M for midpoint. And notice the midpoint divides this line into 2 equal sections. Since it divides it into 2 equal sections, we put what's called a tick mark right here and a tick mark right here to indicate that these two, from C to M, is the same distance as from M to D. 2 equal segments. Midpoint formula is great at finding the middle.